the question becomes, how do we get Elon Musk and his Teenaged Mutant Ninja Turtles arrested? The Democratic Party, Rip Van Winkle chairman, has awakened from its slumber, and the nation with it. It has appreciated the reality of the crises of the tech bro coup and the putsch to privatize government and the multi-trillion-dollar attempted heist and Trump's plan to invade Gaza so he can personally own it. Lawsuits are flying. Impeachment, symbolic, but even symbolically undefeated, is underway, and more on each in a moment. Trump is immune until we eventually replace this Supreme Court with, something to do with the law and the Constitution. However, Musk is not immune. Marco Elez, the 25-year-old Musk fop allegedly rewriting code and in a position to do anything he wants to your tax dollars, he's certainly not immune. The new Treasury Secretary, Bessent, is not immune. Nicole Hollander is not immune. Akasha Baba is not immune. Luke Farritor is not immune. Ethan Xiao-Tran is not immune. Edward Korestein is not immune. Gautier Cole-Killian is not immune. Gavin Kligger is not immune. And any of the officials at USAID or in the Treasury Department or anywhere else who admitted these little clowns into secure areas, as has been alleged, they are not immune. In fact, they are subject to espionage charges, and they will still be subject to them 4 years from now. But Elon Musk is especially not immune. And what the hell is going on with him now anyway? His usual state, semi-delusional, frantic, irrational, it's given way to full-fledged euphoria and delusional. Delusions not of grandeur, but of omnipotence. Somebody listed the names of his Teenaged Mutant Ninja Turtles in a post on Twitter X, and Musk, acting like he was zonked out of his mind, responded, "You have committed a crime." Even though hours earlier he, Musk, amplified another post on Twitter X listing the same names. Musk has conflated a violation of Twitter doxing rules with actual violations of the law, and then it turned out that simply giving somebody's name is in fact not a violation of Twitter doxing rules. You have committed a crime. No, Elon. Check your mirror. You may have committed a crime. The lawsuits have already begun by government employee unions whose pensions they say Musk and others have illegally put at risk, by the Democrats, by ethics groups to whom Trump gave the priceless gift of declaring Musk an administration employee, making Musk subject to conflict of interest laws. A federal judge in Maryland has already stopped Trump dead in his tracks on sabotaging birthright citizenships. There are 6 other lawsuits already in progress just on birthright citizenship. There are 5 over various aspects of his executive orders on immigration policy. There are 13 about the phony buyouts and the attempts to thus dissolve the CIA, USAID, the Department of Education. There are 4 lawsuits about acts against transgender people. JustSecurity.org has a litigation tracker up. Go there. Odds are like 1 in 3. While you are looking at the site, it will update while you're reading it because there's been a new lawsuit. And the bids to get temporary restraining orders against Musk and the other pirates in the Trump maladministration have unexpectedly been as efficient and as subtle as Trump has been in Trump's work as a saboteur of the courts. It is the exact opposite of what Musk has been in his cyber version of Ocean's 11 meets the Nigerian prince who only needs your bank routing number. But Trump has yet to completely destroy the justice system, and there are still enough judges to tie Musk up in local jurisdictions for the rest of his goddamned life. And especially to tie up these little shit weasels of his, who will suddenly discover that their secret mainframes and social media accounts and SpaceX business cards don't mean crap. And that, as my friend William H. Macy once said in a classic promo for his show Shameless, real world's out here, pal. But the goal has got to be to put Musk in prison. The side effect to Trump getting away with it for now is the residual rage for all of us from 9-year-old politically aware kids to liberal Supreme Court justices, all of us who know Trump deserves to die in jail, not in the White House bathroom. We can't do anything about this for now. So who's the next best choice to absorb our legal wrath? 2 hints. That person will never corner any product nor industry the way he has cornered the world's supplies of smug and snide. And visually, he looks like a skull with some coagulated Botox stretched across it. The key to getting Elon Musk arrested is publicity. What he is doing is a story, by the way, created for local television news, for the older, less affluent audience of local television news. Musk's hackers, allegedly, go into the government where they right now could be stealing your Medicaid money and Social Security live at 11. It is exactly what local television producers want. It's exactly what they dream of. Let's take you now live to Jack Liveshot in Scarsdale with his concerned guest, Concerned Grandma. Call your local newsroom. Once the publicity cycle begins to inflate, then we get to the local prosecutions because Trump has not corrupted the entirety of the legal system yet, and he's not forced out all the U.S. attorneys, and a clever city, county, or state prosecutor could bring countless charges against Musk or his saboteurs or anybody else for everything from, I don't know, theft to breaking and entering. You could do it in D.C., too. The Watergate burglars were not arrested by the FBI for, 17 counts of trying to end democracy. They were arrested for burglary by the Washington Metropolitan Police Department. This is low-hanging fruit because everybody hates Elon Musk. Everybody. Especially all the little tech bros are going to hate Elon Musk after it turns out Musk is not omnipotent. And to do his dirty work for him ends up with you getting your ass taken to jail. First one to flip on Musk gets probation and a brand new Hotmail account and an AOL installation disk. Impeachment today, impeachment tomorrow, impeachment forever. Preach, Al Green, preach.
I rise to announce that the movement to impeach the president has begun. I rise to announce that I will bring articles of impeachment against the president for dastardly deeds proposed and dastardly deeds done.
Congressman Al Green of Texas. I have mentioned before, I will mention again, no, it will not pass. I know that. Congressman Green knows that. We all know that. But we are, for the time being, limited to carefully tactical actions in the courts, holds in the Senate, and impeachment bills, one a week in the House. And the history of impeachment since Richard Nixon is simple and instructive. Impeachment bills pass, and impeachment bills fail, and impeachments happen, and impeachments don't happen, and no president has ever been removed from office, and it don't matter. The party that merely attempts and fails to impeach, no matter the outcome, is 13-0 in the following House, Senate, and presidential elections. That includes the Republicans and all the crap from Lauren Boebert and Jamie Comer in 2023 and 2024. You don't even have to get a vote on your bill. Just keep saying the word impeachment. Damn thing works. The statistic, the precise number 13-0, is disputed. As a historian, I would note it's probably 14-0. The impeachment of Andrew Johnson worked because it was one faction of the then monopolistic Republicans defeating the other faction of the monopolistic Republicans. On the other hand, a congressional aide of my acquaintance says it shouldn't be 13-0 and 14-0. It's 13-1 because Trump was impeached as his term ended in 2021 and the Republicans won the House in 2022. I replied that the Democrats lost fewer seats in 2022 than predicted the morning of the election. And so you say the Republicans won the House in 2022? How did that work out for them? Elsewhere, surprisingly enough, Trump's plan to take Gaza and maybe own it himself and turn it into the Middle Eastern Riviera, the division of Trump World, Inc. Oh, and commit to what amounts to ethnic cleansing of the current 2 million Palestinians who live there, as if he were doing the world a favor, has made him an international laughingstock the way nothing else in 10 years has. And this is a world, after all, that laughed at him during his speech to the UN. The bar is kind of high. The man who ran on ending forever wars and who mocks Bush to this day about Iraq at every opportunity, who falsely claims he was against the Iraq invasion, is ready to send what would have to be dozens of times as many American troops as went into Iraq, 600 miles east, to forcibly remove anybody still in Gaza and send them to Egypt and Jordan, whether they like it or not, or Egypt and Jordan like it or not. And oh, by the way, there's still Hamas in Gaza. And I'm not thinking they're going to be lining up at the counter for their tickets on the Trump shuttle to Amman. And of course, Trump is still sending little twits like Marco Rubio around, insisting we're going to take back the Panama Canal, and his son Idiot Jr. to take over Greenland. And all of a sudden, those 1,300,000 active duty American troops, they're just not going to be enough now, are they? So now Trump's backed himself into the next corner, bringing back the draft. Hasn't said it yet. Wait for it. If there is one thing that will guarantee riots in the streets, that, oh, by the way, the rioters will win, it's another draft. The last one was expanded for Vietnam in the 60s at a time when the nation still largely believed its government meant well and had judgment, and when parents would actually willingly let the government take their children to send them to die meaninglessly in a conflict we could not win or even influence. When we still believed in large part that the government's judgment on such things could be trusted. And still, within 3 years, there were daily protests and draft card burnings and violent underground terrorist organizations and enough chaos to end Lyndon Johnson's presidency and force an end to the war and the draft within the decade. If any president for Gaza or Greenland or Panama or whatever else he pulls out of his own ass, if Trump or any president tried a draft, except in the event of something on the scale of World War II, in these days when the idea of people agreeing to be forced by the government to risk their lives in an optional war is met with only rage and uncontrollable laughter. If Trump actually tried a draft, and to clean out Gaza, he'd have to have a draft. If he actually did it, I'd give his presidency a week to 10 days before he and everybody in it were forced out of office. It may not have occurred to Trump yet that to do just Gaza, maybe just Greenland, or just Panama, it would require a draft. And by the way, I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate those who protested Israel and Biden's attempts to find a way out of the Gordian knot of the Middle East by not voting for Kamala Harris. Your boy Trump is demanding all Palestinians get out of Gaza. Nice protest. It's ethnic cleansing. Wait until Trump responds to the blowback to that, domestic and international, to his insane belief that he personally can make gazillions in Gaza tourism. When somebody tells him he has just damaged himself and beclowned himself and made the world wonder if it needs to try to forcibly remove him because he's crazy, his next move won't be all out Palestinians out of Gaza. It will be all Palestinians out of America. Not favoring that, by the way. I'm just saying that's how he will react. Good call. vote against Kamala Harris. What could go wrong? Who knew this could happen? Everybody told us this, but we thought they were just, who knows? You bought it, you lie in it. The irony of the first 2 weeks of the Trump redux is that his minions have been stunningly successful, illegally successful, of course, but still, we don't got to show you any stinking badges. The drag on their plan for world domination is this idiot Trump and his idiot pal, idiot Musk, or as they may soon be known, Thelma and Louise. Tariffs, tariffs, tariffs. They start now. Let me just talk to Canada and Mexico first. Oh, okay, no tariffs. End result, headline in the Wall Street Journal, Trump blinks on North American tariffs. Well played, sir. Hole in one. First 60 shots didn't count. Then there was yesterday's farce of, quote, banning transgendered women from competing in women's sports at the collegiate and grade school and high school level. Which part of Trump's promise to return all control of education to the states would this be? All control of education to the states except for sports. I will also remind you of two things I have mentioned before. The estimated number of women athletes at the scholastic level whose birth gender was male in this country is 105. 105. Of course, that estimate is old. It's a month ago. It was made by a group seeking to ban them, so it may now be up to 106. And I will add that nearly 50 years ago, when my friend Dr. Renee Richards, formerly Dr. Richard Raskin, reached tennis's U.S. Open, she, of course, wiped out Chris Everett and Martina Navratilova and all the rest, and you'll remember she won 23 consecutive Wimbledons, and she destroyed women's tennis for all time because of her bone structure advantage. Oh, that's right. None of that happened because this issue is trivial, because there's 106 of them in the country. And it only became a cause célèbre for morons and mediocrities like the swimmer Riley Gaines, who finished well behind a transgendered woman once and then devoted her life to hounding transgendered people. Congrats on the Riley Gaines was a mediocre swimmer, but a worse person order. Couple of Vichy media notes as Marjorie Taylor Greene, who declared yesterday that the music magazine and news outlet is called Rolling Stones, demanded NPR and PBS testify to some committee she runs, or subcommittee, or the Doge committee, who knows? Hi, this is the subcommittee for morons. PBS has commissioned a poll in which 72% of Trump voters said they valued PBS for its kids' programming. 65% of Trump voters think PBS is either adequately funded by the government or insufficiently funded by the government. Unbelievable. There's a large group of Trump voters who believe we should be giving more taxpayer money to PBS. Government funds are only 15% of the PBS budget anyway. Have a nice time with that data, Marge. I don't know. A number as big as 65. She may just faint. Stephen A. Smith is skating further and further onto thin ice. He says it would be a sacrifice, but he might run for the Democratic nomination in 2028. How's your shoulder did you have an injury patting yourself on the back? Both arms at the same time? Surgery? Polling, and it's by a Trump pollster, has Kamala Harris at 35% right now for the 2028 nomination, and nobody else in double digits. But just for giggles, here's the rest of the list. Buttigieg, 9. Newsom, 7. AOC, 6. Governor Shapiro, 3. Governor Walz, 3. Governor Whitmer, 3. Senator Klobuchar, 3. Cory Booker, 2. Governor Moore, 2. Stephen A. Smith, 2. Governor Pritzker, 1. Beto O'Rourke, 1. Governor Murphy, 1. Governor Polis, 1. So Stephen trails Tim Walz and Amy Klobuchar. But he's got twice the support of Jared Polis, who's been collaborating with Republicans. Well done, Steve! The problem with Stephen A. Smith is I'm not sure if he doesn't realize that 2% is nothing. or if he was just so excited to see his name on the list that he didn't even look at the number. And we have the nearly weekly self-owned by Van Jones, now in its 10th year. Van Jones is still on CNN. Van Jones commented on Scott Jennings, the racist misogynist CNN platforms every night in hopes of getting an audience that just will not show up for Abby Phillips' show, no matter who you put on it. She is at a little better than 1/3 the Lawrence O'Donnell audience. And I assume most of Lode's audience at this point is people who died in front of the TV and left it on MSNBC. That's just my guess based on my experience with him. Anyway, Van Jones told the Wall Street Journal about Mr. Jennings of the Abby Phillips show, quote, "I've never felt on air that Scott was saying something he didn't believe in a way that was unnecessarily incendiary just to go viral." So Van, you're saying Scott Jennings isn't a white supremacist, asshole, clickbaiting poser? He's a real white supremacist asshole? And that's better somehow? If CNN canceled its primetime lineup and went all cartoons, the quality of CNN commentary and CNN journalism would shoot through the roof. In the interim, I have this suggestion. CNN should try to get Van Jones and Scott Jennings to shoot through the roof. See you, boys! Also of interest here, Rahm Emanuel and David Axelrod are upset at the Democrats' reaction to Musk canceling the U.S. aid program. Not righteously indignant enough, not protesting enough, not acting enough. No. These two dinosaurs think Democrats should not have reacted at all. Happily, my pal Will Bunch ended Rahm Emanuel's remaining credibility with one of the greatest burns I have ever read. That's next. This is Countdown.
This is Countdown with Keith Olbermann.
Still ahead, I was quoted in the Washington Post the other day as saying about Rachel Maddow, quote, "Television political commentary is better when she's on the air." My understanding is she's pissed about that. Why? Because there's an article about her in which I am quoted. This is not an odd phenomenon, although she has elevated it to real weirdness. Not long after I got to ESPN in 1992, People magazine found out that I had gone to school with, was a protege there of, and then successor to, Chris Berman. And they were doing a story on him, so they interviewed me about him. And when it came out, Chris took me into a studio, and a rolled-up copy of the magazine was in his hand, and he was angry. "They've quoted you in here more than they have quoted me. What?" I pointed out that I'd only said nice things. Chris, and this is him in brief, quickly apologized. "I'm sorry. A family member is upset. Anyway, what I really should have said was, I'm glad somebody who knew me before I was a big deal still likes me now when I am a big deal." That is also Chris. It's way less conceited than it sounds. I could not resist the joke, though, that he had just set up. I pointed at his copy of People, and I said, "Where in there does it say I like you?" He scowled and then said, "So if they ever do a piece on you for some reason, I'll just say you were as big a wise ass now as you were when you were 13. I said, that was fair, and that was the end of it. When they did do a story on me, they didn't even call him. Maddow, though, didn't apologize, and alas to that. The Post noted, quote, that I helped jumpstart Maddow's career and that of other network stars, which is the first time that reality has sneaked into print in like 5 years. And it's true. But it doesn't get to the gist of it, which is I fought my bosses for a year, the ones who said MSNBC viewers would never watch a woman do political news. One of those geniuses is now president of a production company because TV damages the brains of everybody connected to it, myself included. You have to work your way back from that kind of damage. Few do. In point of fact, I actually wound up personally stopping MSNBC from losing Maddow to CNN when Larry King offered her $250 to be a guest one night. Turned out we were getting her work for free. That's right, $250. I stepped in, hired her myself, spent $437 literally out of my own wallet to keep her there, and billions of dollars later, I will tell you the story in full because I think this is the anniversary of the event. It is a story that sounds crazier and crazier every time I tell it. I will tell it in full next in Things I Promised Not to Tell. First, believe it or not, there's still more new idiots to talk about. The daily roundup of the miscreants, morons, and Dunning-Kruger effect specimens who constitute today's other worst persons in the world. Today's episode is dedicated to dishonorable mention recipient Nancy Mace. The Congresswoman stood on the floor of the House yesterday and shouted repeatedly, quote, tranny, 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 which wouldn't be news. She has episodes like that. Also, Miss Mace does not have a screw loose. She has a hardware store full of screws loose. The reason this matters is that after her former communications director, Natalie Johnson, wrote to Mace on social about, quote, your botched, cheap, hooker-inspired boob job, unquote, it is evident that the average transgendered person has had less plastic surgery than has Nancy Mace. Anywho, thus we proceed to the medalists. The bronze, worse, the NFL, the National Football League. From The Athletic, a Super Bowl change, something that had been in place since the 2021 game. By the way, can we drop the moronic Roman numerals already? This isn't ancient Rome. We barely use them at all anymore except for this stupid game. And nobody knows what LIX means in mathematics anymore anyway. LIX. Everybody already has a joke about what LIX could mean. Anyway, the change from The Athletic, NFL to remove end racism messaging in end zone ahead of Super Bowl sources. And there is a picture of a preceding Super Bowl with the Chiefs logo in the end zone and then above it in smaller letters right under the goalpost, end racism. Hey, Roger Goodell, commissioner of the NFL, I know you're an idiot, but certainly somebody said to you. Somebody had to have mentioned this. Hey, you know what? If we suddenly become against end racism, isn't that the same as being for racism? NFL, Nazi Football League. The runner-up, generic get-off-my-lawn Republican octogenarian Jack Mladen, who decided to engage Justin Trudeau with one of the oldest cliches of all time on social media. It's literally at least 2,000 years old. And Jack screwed it up. Trudeau wrote, the United States has confirmed that it intends to impose 25% tariffs on most Canadian goods with 10% tariffs on energy starting February 4th. Obviously, things have changed since this was written. I've met with the premiers and our cabinet today, and I'll be speaking with President Sheinbaum of Mexico shortly. We did, etc., etc. And Jack Mladen, whose handle is @JohnMladen, signifying a life of utter confusion on his part, had Canada been treating us fairly, Jack added, this would never have happened, so buckle up, Canada. You're taking on Goliath. It got community noted because, of course, as the note said, Goliath died in that story. This Mladen guy, whoever he was reduced to explaining that he knew all that, of course, but that clearly this time the odds were Goliath will win. Ms. Mladen is, of course, Mr. Mladen, whatever he is, of course, more representative of a different biblical bit of imagery, namely the jawbone of an ass. But our winner is Rahm Emanuel. Boy, oh boy, did this idiot not recognize his own sell-by date. Never noticed when the sand had run out in his hourglass. His Washington Post op-ed was bad enough. Democrats have become the party of permissiveness. That's ballot box poison. This whole article, flimsy, badly written, repetitive, was an excuse to explain that only Bill Clinton's campaign in 1992 really got that balance right between big issues and kitchen table issues. And who worked on that campaign? Why, it was whiny, holier-than-thou, sound of one hand clapping, and the hand was Emanuel's, and he was looking at a picture of himself as he did it, Rahm Emanuel. That op-ed was bad enough. But Emanuel's interview with Politico, in which he insists that the Democrats are wrong to devote any time to trying to stop Elon Musk savaging American foreign aid and breaking into the digital equivalent of Fort Knox, that's way worse. Rahm Emanuel is a fool. He got lucky once, like David Axelrod got lucky once. Axelrod is in the same story. He echoed to Politico this same stick-to-kitchen table issues while Trump is trying to steal everybody's kitchen table. And Gaza, and open up, I don't know, a restaurant with your kitchen table in it. Rahm Emanuel, David Axelrod, and Politico, all in the same place. The all-star team of conventional wisdom, as long as it's still 1996. Missing only Chuck Todd and Chris Cillizza. How could it get worse? Well, I will offer one Emanuel quote with this preface. I've mentioned it before. I brought up Chris Berman in high school. Will Bunch of the Philadelphia Inquirer, who used to answer to Bill Bunch, by the way, was from the day he joined our high school newspaper, which Berman had just graduated from. Bunch was our best reporter, my best reporter. I was news editor and editor-in-chief, and I'd been on the paper 4 years, and I really was a good editor. It was my calling, and then this got in the way. Anyway, Bunch was so good back then, this is 52 years ago, that I remember saying to him at the time, your article is the first one, I'll do my voice from that. Your article is the first one I can't do anything to make it better. Well, Bunch is still that good. First, the Emanuel quote from Politico that I referred to, then Bunch responding to it with the best burn of the year so far. Quote, Rahm Emanuel, the former House leader, Chicago mayor, and diplomat, told me much the same. Quote, you don't fight every fight. You don't swing at every pitch. And my view is, while I care about the U.S. aid as a former ambassador, that's not the hill I'm going to die on, he said. Will Bunch screenshotted this and posted it with this kill shot directed at Emanuel. Quoting Will, please tell me the hill that you will die on so that I can transport you there immediately. I'll pay for the Uber, Will. Rahm, you're dead, son. Get yourself buried. Emanuel, today's worst person in the world. The geniuses of MSNBC. So I looked up the details of this, and it looks like this is the anniversary. It's somewhere around here at the beginning of February from 2008. Late in November 2007, after several months of pressuring my MSNBC bosses to hire Rachel Maddow to try out as my guest host, with a goal of then showcasing her and spinning her off into her own show, the vice president in charge of the network, Phil Griffin, agreed to give Maddow a deal for $40 or $50,000 as an MSNBC contributor. It would do nothing more than lock her in place so that CNN would not steal her from us. I mean, I knew that conversation and that concession still would not get her her own show, but what I did not know was the concession I was told about, the contributor's contract, it was a lie. And by January of 2008, as the Clinton-Obama primary race turned into a tongue war, we were imposing upon Rachel Maddow to join the desk each Tuesday for primary night. She was not anchoring, she was not even the lead analyst, and my uncontrollable fire hose co-host Matthews was consistently pretending that she did not actually exist. But she existed, she was there, and I quizzed her about every topic every chance I got. Soon, I began to include her appearances in the pre-recorded open that I would write, 2 minutes of hyperbole that was really designed merely to give everybody enough time to get my fat ass into the anchor chair and everybody else's mics on. With Tim Russert in the NBC News Washington Bureau, David Gregory at Clinton headquarters, Howard Feynman and Eugene Robinson in New York, Chuck Todd at the exit poll desk, Tom Brokaw at the perspective desk, MC Escher at the lack of perspective desk. Then came Super Tuesday, February 5th, 2008. I was writing this orgasmic drivel, as I always did on Tuesday, crossing the names of who was where off the list as I went. The list handed to me by the executive producer, Izzy Povich, when I noticed the list did not include either Rachel or the Rachel desk. I knocked on the wall that separated our little offices at 30 Rock, and she shuffled in, complete with a sincere smile of friendship, but always also with what seemed to be a little space kept in reserve where she could wonder if I was mad enough to try to take somebody hostage. Yes, my third child? Where's Rachel tonight? I asked as I waved the paper at her, assuming oversight, but leaving my own little space in reserve where my earlier nightmare had come true. Not on paper. Please to put name Rachel on paper. Izzy Povich said it matter-of-factly. Oh, yeah, well... Oh, I was in trouble. That elongated consonant always meant trouble. She's on Larry King tonight. Momentarily, I went very stupid. Well, how in the hell does that work when she has a contract with us? I'll tell you, but you have to promise not to hate me. The Izzy Povich fake cringe and crouch ensued. Phil made me promise not to tell you. Rachel doesn't have a contract with us. He told me he told you he'd get her one. Then his boss refused to give him the money. I'm sorry. You promised not to hate me. Momentarily, I was calm. Momentarily. But, Why didn't you tell me that before approximately, right now? Why didn't you tell me this before she agreed to go on Larry King's show? Well, she only decided this morning. Apparently, she really needs the cash. I told Phil, and he said, those are the breaks, buddy. The last thing I actually remember doing, the last part that I did not need to recreate from the memories of others and an occasional flashback in therapy, was asking how much my old friend Larry King was going to give Rachel. Izzy pursed her lips. $250. I remember screaming that figure several times, along with all the swear words I knew. I remember vocalizing, we are going to lose Rachel Maddow, the next great talent of cable news, to effing CNN for $250 effing dollars. Everything else after that statement is darkness. I know I phoned Phil Griffin and threatened him. Izzy recently confirmed for me that I asked her to leave before I called him and threatened him. I believe I warned him that if he did not sign her to a contributor's contract within 24 hours, I would walk off the set during that night's primary coverage, or maybe the next week's, or maybe during Countdown tomorrow night. It would be a surprise. I'm also confident that I warned him that of all the talent on television, Larry King had the best knowledge of what and who else would succeed. More than the rest of us combined, he was a savant. And when he saw her in real time on his primary night panel, we would never see her again, and she would have a CNN contract before midnight. I told Phil that when that happened, I would then kill him with my bare hands. Or Jeff Zucker would kill him when she wound up beating the hell out of us in the ratings. This statement all took longer than this paragraph would imply because I know without fear of contradiction, every other word out of my mouth was either what we used to call an oath or the phrase, Jesus H. Christ. Mind you, these people, the president of NBC, Jeff Zucker, and it's a year since they got rid of him at CNN, the president of NBC News, Steve Kappas, and the soon-to-be president of MSNBC, Phil Griffin, these had been the same people who about a year earlier had decided that their 10 p.m. host, Tucker Carlson, yep, Tucker Carlson was on MSNBC, that Tucker Carlson did not need two people to play the role of liberal foil on his show at like $50,000 a year. So they kept one of them. His name was Max Kellerman, and they fired the other one. Her name was Rachel Maddow. They fired Rachel Maddow at MSNBC to save $50,000. She was back now at MSNBC only because my producer, Izzy, had suggested making her a regular guest, and within a couple of months I realized she would be the next great host in cable news. And after months of pleading, including pleading with her because she didn't want to do it, I had just convinced them to put her back under contract, except they had lied to me and they had not put her back under contract. I may have mentioned this to Phil Griffin during our phone call. 111 different times I may have mentioned it to him. I also telephoned Rachel. I did not swear at her. Here, every other word out of my mouth was not an oath, but an apology. I said I had genuinely believed she was already being paid, and I was not only humiliated on behalf of my network, but that I was far more humiliated that I had not double-checked with her that they'd actually given her the contract they told me they had given her. I begged her to please don't go on CNN tonight. I did not ask her to skip out on them and return to us unless she thought she could pull that off gracefully and with a clean conscience, but just not to go on with Larry. And that's where I added the little $437 stunt. I'm sorry about the money situation, I said. I didn't know. Now I know. I can only do this. I think they will give you $40,000 or $50,000 for a contributor's deal, just to start. But what I will do is, and while making as many sound effects of exertion as I could dream up, I stretched around, I pulled my wallet out of my back pocket, and I emptied it onto my desk. I need to keep $5 to tip my driver tonight. You can have the rest of whatever cash I have on me. I'm counting it now. There's 100. 20, 20, 20. My play-by-play skipped no bills. $442. American. 5 for the driver, the rest for you. $437, Rachel. Deal? She laughed. I'll see you tonight. I'll just tell Larry I couldn't be disloyal to you. Oh, and I will take the money. And she took the money. In point of fact, when I like to say anything that Rachel Maddow did with her career after we got her show on the air in August of 2008, that's all her doing. I have nothing to do with that except being the lead-in for the first 2 years. That's true. But I also like to say that I got that show on the air. And I also like to say I hired Rachel Maddow at MSNBC. And this is my point. It was not figuratively. It was not metaphorically. I hired her out of my own pocket. I literally hired Maddow at MSNBC for $437. And I will point this out again. I never even got the $437 back. As I said a segment ago, doing TV damages the brain. I don't know if it's something in the camera. I don't know if it's something in the wiring. I don't know if it's something that attracts already flawed people to it. But the first thing it does is it takes whatever part of you is grateful and burns that to a cinder. You begin to think, I used to think this myself, that the people who helped you succeed somehow subtracted from your own value today and you had to erase them. The premise, as near as I can figure out, was if they were important to your success, were you important to your own success, or was it all an accident of timing? It's illogical, paranoid, and the epitome of ingratitude, of course. Then, of course, that's the definition of MSNBC. Anywho, let me descend from the soapbox and send you on your way with my thanks for listening. Brian Ray and John Philip Chanel, the musical directors of Countdown, arranged, produced, and performed most of our music. Mr. Chanel handled orchestration and keyboards. Mr. Ray was on the guitars, bass, and drums. As the third member of TKO Brothers, which produced it, I'm very grateful to them both. Our satirical and pithy musical comments are by the best baseball stadium organist ever, Nancy Faust. I am grateful to her contributions and the fact that she gave me an interview at UPI in 1980. The sports music is the Olbermann theme from ESPN2. I'm grateful that Mitch Warren Davis wrote it, and I'm grateful to ESPN for letting me play it. Other music arranged and performed by the group No Horns Allowed, and I'm grateful to them. My announcer today was my friend John Dean, whose friendship is one of my greatest sources of pride and to whom I thank every day. Everything else was, as ever, my fault. That's Countdown for today. Just 1,445 days until the scheduled end of his lame duck, lame-brained term, unless Musk removes him sooner. The next scheduled countdown is Monday. As always, bulletins as the news warrants. Remember, Al Green is right. Impeach Trump and keep impeaching Trump. It won't pass now. It won't work now. It will win the Democrats the midterms. Till next time, I'm Keith Olbermann. Good morning, good afternoon, good night, and good luck.